Good afternoon, world. It's moments past noon in Waxahachie, Texas, deep in the heart of the Lone Star State. Today is the 29th of May. The month is slipping away from us, and it's episode number 66 of Grit and Good News. We're broadcasting live from our palatial studio here in downtown Waxahachie in the shadows of the Ellis County Courthouse. I am your co-host, Jeff Lynch. Our man Sam, who's got a really good looking shirt that
He
he pulled
does,
out of his
doesn't he?
dad's closet.
Looking
That's a
good.
new thing here.
Yeah.
Uh, and he's on the board taking care of us. And my man Scott Brooks, you know him, you love him.
Thank you, bud. And look, the gear is good and will remain good despite what happens tonight. But I'll be danged, they better win tonight because they're a better team than what they've been showing, aren't
Yeah.
they?
Well, it's like I was saying again. I've said this often. The main reason teams don't win
Why?
because they're not good enough, and I don't think they are good enough. And here's what scares me also. And I said this earlier before this round when you had teams like Edmonton winning in
Yeah.
5 games,
Yeah.
and Panthers living in five.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, you got rested teams playing teams that have been in a vigorous situation. Last night, Panthers tie,
Yeah.
finish.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
last night was Wednesday night. If the Stars win tonight, then
They
they
play
play
again Saturday.
in Edmonton
Yep.
and Monday in Dallas,
Yep.
meaning the earliest that series could ever open.
I think
If it
that's
went seven, they wouldn't be starting on Wednesday. They'd be
I
starting on Thursday.
Yeah, I think I know it's scheduled to start. Well, it's the NBA's final start on the 5th, which is June 5th, which is the Thursday next week. So I'm sure the Stanley Cup won't start the same night. So it probably would be Wednesday. So you're right. If they go seven, which is the only way for the Stars now to win it,
Right.
they're not going to have a break whatsoever.
So Edmonton would be not rested, but at least they had the extra couple of days before they started us.
Yeah, they would
So
have more days
that's
for
a tough
sure.
road to hoe. And too many things are going on in my life right now, including I was over at school today picking up our edition of our newly published book. The sequel to If I Were a is called Because I Was a,
Yeah.
and it's a cute little book. But anyway, I did not even get any of my paper read. All I had time to do was to take the quiz, which I
All right.
brought,
Well,
and the headline was about the Stars need to get more grit, and that is why
you need to
it's a
get more
long
what?
introduction.
Aggressive? Grit?
Aggressive.
Yeah.
And why am I wearing number 5, Jamie Oleksiak, who's
Yeah. No.
no, we lost him in the expansion draft to the Seattle Kraken. Okay, why am I wearing it?
Well, I wear it. I'm assuming you're wearing it because they get played tonight and you want them to win.
Well, I got a whole bunch of other things I could have been wearing in the green, but
Well,
Jamie Oleksiak, they called him the Big Rig. Okay, and
mm-hmm.
he was 6'7". Now we got this Liam
Yeah.
Bichelle who's 6'8",
Yeah.
but Jamie could really take people out. And here's what I'm a little bothered. Earlier in the season, in the playoffs, Liam was hitting everything that skated. I remember there was
Yeah.
one game he had 15 hits,
Yeah.
and I don't think we're standing up to the Oilers
Yeah.
the way we need to, and especially the whole deal with the Rupe hints.
Yeah. I mean, Rupe Hens the game the other night, as the game was ending, I don't know if you saw it, but one of the Edmonton players, as they were going off, uh, reached out and hit him with a stick on top of his foot, where there is no protection.
He did that about 3 shifts into the game.
Yeah, well, he did it twice. He did it at the
I
end of the
didn't.
game, and Rupe Hintz just kept on walking. Yeah. So, hey Terry and Chuck, good that you guys are with us. Thank you.
We got to grow
Yeah,
a pair.
well, they better grow them right now. They better be grown as we have this show. So, welcome to Very Good News. We're here every Tuesday and Thursday, and as you can tell, we'd like to talk about a lot of different things. Excuse me for my voice. Um, Jeff is usually decked out in some hockey gear.
I don't do this all year long. It's
I
just a playoff deal.
Yeah, that's all right.
I'm looking forward to getting back to my golf
I'm
shirts.
wearing my shut your face hat, not because I want people to be quiet, but because when I'm on the golf course and I hit an incredibly bad shot, or in the rare event I hit an incredibly great shot, I'll just look at people and say, "Shut your face! Don't
Shut your
say a word to
face.
me. Just carry on." So anyway, and of course I got my Sunday Red stuff. I'm a big Sunday Red fan of Tiger Woods' new line of clothing. It's a year old now, since it's been out. But tonight is a big night for Dallas sports, so we're going to see. It's time for the Stars to rise up and get the job done. They're coming close to being what the Bills are known for being, and that is a dynasty in the making that went to four straight Super Bowls and lost all four of them. This will be 3 years in a row that the Stars have been to the conference finals and have lost if they lose tonight, and that can't be. So, and furthermore, if Edmonton wins tonight, I think it's a repeat of last year's Stanley Cup, wasn't it? Edmonton and yeah, because we played Edmonton the same thing last year
Mm-hmm.
and lost. So
Mm-hmm.
we're going to have a repeat. Although Edmonton, Florida, two of the best teams, would be a great showdown.
And we don't want to take too much time on this, but I'll tell you, if Edmonton wins,
Yeah,
I want them.
yeah,
You
yeah,
always want to. I mean, I love them already,
yeah.
but you always want to root for the team that took you
That you,
out, so you can
we,
say,
yeah.
if
See,
they hadn't
we
taken us
lost to the
out,
Stanley Cup Finals, and then of course Sammy and his NBA. Uh,
wisdom,
yeah, well, I wouldn't call it wisdom
I
because
would
he thought that Minnesota would beat OKC, and that didn't happen. Matter of fact,
No, I
don't
had
look
I
at me
had
like
I had
that.
Thunder in 7, I
Sammy,
think.
the Under Thunder you got is the one you hear from time to time. But the Thunder smoked the Timberwolves. The Timberwolves ought to be ashamed. You show up in it'd be the equivalent of the Stars going tonight and losing 8-1.
Well,
Uh,
yeah, but the same thing happened. The Thunder got killed in Minnesota the game
well,
before.
yeah, 42 points, but that's what I'm saying. You beat a team by 42 points, and then you go to the game you got to win the most, or you go home and you lose by 30 or whatever it was. That's what happened. Minnesota didn't even show up. So
Not
we've got
good enough.
Oklahoma City, probably I would say at this point going to play the Indiana Pacers, although we'll know tonight because they play. The Knicks are just like the same position as the Stars. They got to win or they go home. So there you have it from the world of sports. And then a couple other updates. We
And from the world
have,
of number
oh yeah, you got to do number
66,
66. What about that?
it's a short list, but it starts out with the great Mario
Mario
Lemieux.
Lemieux.
And I remember when I was working for the National Hockey League, and I didn't like it as much when I was in the press boxes when I was down in the penalty box or goal judging. But I was up there for a game where Pittsburgh was in town, and I was the keeping tallies of who's on the ice for what they call um, plus minus,
Hmm.
and so you can keep track of how many goals you're on versus how many against.
Right.
And I'm writing down all the time 66, 68, 66,
Yeah.
68. I mean, because those guys are on the line together, and they were out there all the
Yeah.
time.
They
And we
were
all know that
incredible.
who 68 was,
Yeah.
my man Sid the Kid.
Jaromir Jagr.
Uh,
Mario Jr.
and that was the only decent NFLer with a 66 in the NHL. In
Yeah.
the NFL, we had Ray Nitschke, the
Yeah.
great middle linebacker
Yeah.
for the Packers.
And no teeth, that kind of guy.
And the same story on Major League Baseball had like 160 people with just a handful of people that had played more than 1 year. But I was scrolling down and I saw Steve Balboni, New
I remember
York.
that name.
He
Yeah.
played in the early uh, 80s,
Yeah.
and he had a great name, uh, Bye Bye
Balboni.
Balboni.
Yeah.
And so I looked this up. He had 187, 181 home runs in 3120 at bats.
Hmm.
That's 17 at bats per home run.
Yeah.
And I thought, okay, well, I don't really know historically, is that great or not?
Well,
And I went and I looked up Hank Aaron,
yeah.
755 and 12,364, one in 16.3.
Yeah.
It's it's
It's
it's
pretty
it's Hank
good.
Aaron
Yeah.
numbers, man.
Yeah. So yeah, I remember him.
Yeah.
Uh,
Bye bye.
yeah, bye
Bye bye.
Balboni. Yeah. Another two more rulings by rogue judges, as I refer to them, that are trying to stop Trump from being able to implement his strategy and his approach to running this country. In this case, it is a judge who made a ruling this morning that no no, Trump cannot prevent any student, foreign student, from enrolling at Harvard, or Harvard can't be prohibited from enrolling foreign students. So this is going to continue to play out, and Jeff and I are going to talk about what let's call a shadow government in just a little bit. But more and more rulings are coming down. I think it's going to basically happen every week, where we're going to see these rulings being held up by some judge in some corner of the country that really doesn't have jurisdiction, shouldn't have jurisdiction. It's not about these judges being bad people. It's about, as I said the other day, it's about these judges being able to determine things that impact you and I, in our case in the state of Texas, but anybody in the country. So, and the judiciary was never intended to trump, pardon the pun, trump the executive branch, and that's what's going on here. So
Right. And so the question on that is, I mean, it's like we talked the other day. You can't enable somebody to do something and criticize them for doing it. Uh, have they been enabled in any fashion, or are they just are
the system in and of itself is what enables them.
well? So
So
how is that?
that is what the House of Representatives has been working on, and they need to hurry up a plan to change that. The Supreme Court is going to hear these arguments. I think they've already heard
Yeah.
these arguments, and will be making a ruling sometime soon, hopefully, because it's got to stop. And I will say this: it's not necessarily because Trump is in office. I don't think Biden, Biden wasn't running the government, as we're learning about, and we're going to learn more about in the weeks to come. But go back to Obama, and go back to Clinton, go back to any Democrat that's been in office. You won't find any. Matter of fact, with any Republican, go back all the way back to Jimmy Carter. Fast forward through all of them to where we are now. Overruling Trump has become the rule rather than the exception. Prior to Trump, it's been the exception to the rule, and it's not acceptable. So Trump was voted. If you voted for Trump, you voted for him to do what he's doing, not for these rogue judges to be able to stop him from doing it. So the system in and of itself has got to be changed, and it's a system that's been in place forever. And so it just irritates me that this is going on. And again, it's not necessarily about the judges, it's about the system. And these judges are simply taking full advantage of it. I get it.
So the system does allow it, even
Yeah.
though nobody was ever doing it in the history of our
Well,
country,
no,
really.
they've done it before, but not to this level at all. Matter of fact, again, if we went back, and maybe I will go back and research how often judges, federal judges or district judges, whatever they're called, overruled a sitting president with one of his rulings. I want That would be interesting to look at, because it's always been there for judges to do, and they've always done it, but not like this. I mean, just since we had our last show, there have been two judges that have ruled against Trump to be able to do what Trump was elected to do.
So
It's unacceptable.
yeah, and I mean, it's one thing to play it out with the Supreme Court. There's another thing to just legislate it out. And
Yeah,
we had Substack poems about that the
yeah.
other week, and that's my closing line. And why is that not the top thing that Republicans are working on right now?
Well, I know they are working on it. Whether or not they've got urgency, would seem to me they do have urgency. Again, it's gone now before the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court will make a ruling. My
So they're
hope
not
is,
going to bother with it because if the Supreme
yeah, the
Court goes
Supreme
that
Court
way.
may come back and say these judges, that we're restricting these judges from doing this, because I'll be damned if I want some judge in the liberal Northeast, or in the liberal on the liberal coast, either coasts, to be making decisions that overrule a president that I elected for, and stop him from doing the things that I elected him for. It's insidious, it's ridiculous, and I won't say what it does using bad words, but it just ticks me off. It ticks most people off, I think, and it should tick everybody off. Um, uh, I also want to mention we are going to have a segment soon about Brian Harrison, the District 10 rep in the state of Texas. He represents all of Ellis County, part of Henderson County down in Austin. Brian Harrison, it's fair to say, has become a bit of a joke, class clown, and not a funny class clown, the kind of class clown that you literally laugh at, and not with, uh, but laugh at and think of as a fool kind of clown. He's making a fool of himself and of Ellis County. Most recently, Brian Harrison failed to supply a committee with information it needed regarding Ellis County's district court system. It was doing a study of all the courts in the state of Texas in terms of what are the dockets, how many of these cases are these judges overburdened by their dockets, which is almost always yes. And if so, then we need to add another court or another two courts or whatever to relieve that or ease that burden. Brian Harrison was to have submitted some information to the committee chair on it so that Ellis County could get an additional court. We did this a few years ago and got an additional court that Joe Gallo oversees. Brian Harrison missed that deadline, and so Ellis County, as I know as of right now, has been left out of the approval process, and it's unacceptable. I don't know what he's doing, but when I see him doing whatever he's doing, he's not the kind of guy I will want to have a conversation with if I were in politics. As a media person, he's the perfect kind of guy I'd love to have a discussion with. He's arrogant, cocky, pomp, pomp. What's the word? Pomp,
Pompous.
pompous. Yeah, and it's just unacceptable. And I've been after Brian Harrison for a long, long time. He's got to go at some point. You can get that off, Stan. So there you have it for our update. Page one news. Let's talk about the Golden Dome. So we got Trump, who is obviously on a roll in terms of doing what he said he was going to do. And one of the things he talked about during his campaign, and I think he talked about it in his first term, he called it the Iron Dome, not the was it Iron Dome? I think he called it an Iron Dome, similar to what Israel has. So we know Israel has it's not a literal dome, meaning it's not like a dome building top. It's a literal dome insofar as a defense system with all the technology you can imagine in place to prevent missiles from certain kind of missiles from getting into the people of or hitting the people of Israel, and that's been there for a while. America doesn't have such a dome,
Right.
so Trump is now calling it the Golden Dome, and
And we would be getting that technology from Israel.
we would get that technology. Well, we would get it might emulate what Israel has done, but the technology will come from technology companies that you have heard of before. And I'm going to share with you a little bit about who they
Okay.
are. But let me just tell you this: the Golden Dome, the specific, I guess, best way to say it is a defense system of missiles, satellites, and sensors akin to Israel's Iron Dome uh, that would cost us a lot of money. It would, it, if completed as planned, the Golden Dome would make the first time in United States history that we would have weapons in space. And Trump has had his space. What is he? Space, a
How do,
military branch. I don't know what he called it. Army, not the space. Anyway, it would be an additional branch to our military system. Ronald Reagan, I remember as a young man, 22 years old, Star Wars is what it was called rather than the Golden Dome or Iron Dome. Reagan wanted to do the same thing. You could imagine that technology back then, limited as it was, it never got off the ground, so to speak, because of that technology and because of uh, politics. Uh, so this is once it's fully constructed, the Golden Dome will be capable of intercepting missiles, even if they're on other sides of the world, and even if they're launched from space. The Golden Dome, though, is clear that it is envisioned as a constellation of on-ground and space-based sensors and missile uh, interceptors, is is still going to be called. It's a dome. It's a figurative dome. Like you kind of picture it in your eyes. If you look at what Trump has been proposing, they show it on these easels. They show a literal dome, but it's not obviously a literal dome. The companies that have expressed interest in building the Iron Dome for America. There have been over 180 companies that have expressed interest. The ones that we have all heard of would be SpaceX, which is Elon Musk's company. There's another company called Palantir and Anduril, which are other popular. I haven't really heard of those that much. I think I've heard of them from time to time, but not nearly as much as I have of SpaceX. But those companies are interested in providing the Iron Dome for the United States. The amount of money that it would cost, matter of fact, in this big, beautiful bill that we've been hearing about,
right?
there's $25 billion earmarked for it. It would over 10 years, it would cost the United States 175, no, 3 years, $175 billion to have a golden dome. Israel's right now, it costs $100 million for each of its individual, whatever those things are, that are built. But so it's $100 million for each of those components. There are 10 of them in Israel, so that's $1 billion. In our case, to cover the United States and, as we've talked about, Canada would cost 175 billion over 3 years. So, and he has earmarked 25 billion in this budget. The interesting thing about Trump and his negotiating tactics and his way of doing of really running the country like a business, he has said to Canada, "We will include you under the Golden Dome if you will become our 51st state." And although you got to, obviously by now we know that Trump is big on hyperbole. So, but Trump has said they are seriously considering it. If you ask them, I don't know if they'd say they are seriously considering it. And as Jeff and I have talked about both offline and during the show, a 51st state that's as big as Canada kind of is weird. And Canada, Jeff's about to tell you here, doesn't have a state system, it has a province system with communities and cities and whatever else they call those in there. But that's a big old state. You know what I mean? So that's where we are.
It,
One last thing before you get to your part. The Democrats in Congress are fighting people like Elizabeth Warren, who is about the most useless person I can think of when I think of useless people in any walk of life. Uh, she is leading a group of 42 members of Democrats saying that she doesn't want it to be done because of Musk's involvement. There are others who uh, just don't want to do it because of the Trump factor, the cost, and that sort of thing. But right now, it appears that Trump, it's a pretty safe bet that he's not going to stop pushing for the Golden Dome.
which is
So
terrific. And,
yeah,
and
but to cover Canada, you got
yeah.
how many provinces?
Well, you got 10 provinces and you got three territories: the Northwest Territory, the Yukon, and the New Nunavut, which is basically up there into the Arctic. And you got 10 provinces, and all but three of them are bigger than almost every state that we have.
Yeah, so province would be Quebec, Ontario, popular ones,
Yeah,
Alberta.
you're going from east to west. You got Quebec, Ontario, Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Alberta, where Edmonton is,
Yeah,
British Columbia, and on top of that, you got Yukon, Northwest Territories, and the Nunavut, and those are huge land masses.
right.
To the we call them the
East.
maritime provinces
Yeah.
of Prince Edward Island, which is tiny, Nova Scotia, and New Brunswick, and we were to all those things on our Canadian cruise, and we were just talking about this morning for whatever reason, didn't have anything to do with this, about how Nova Scotia has got this tremendous cemetery in Halifax, Nova Scotia, where after the Titanic sunk,
Oh, wow.
um, that was really the closest place,
Hmm.
and they're bringing all these people. They're bringing the live people. They're bringing the bodies. They got a cemetery just for the
The Titanic
Titanic.
people. Yeah.
And my problem is Canada has been such a great neighbor all this time, and it's been such a great border all this time. Why would you insult them? Why get off to the I don't care about negotiating strategies. I'm talking about just decency. Why would you insult somebody and say you can come? It stinks. It absolutely stinks.
Well,
Let's have them and let them all be states.
what say you out there?
Oh my
Again,
God.
I say you got to think like Trump thinks. Trump would say I'm going to play devil's advocate. Trump.
Yeah.
I'm not disrespecting, but with the way it comes out, he wouldn't admit this. I would admit it, but the way it comes out, it sounds like an insult and disrespect. But Trump's saying, join us. We will protect you. We will give you more resources than you've ever had before. We will give you a system under which you will thrive like you've never had before, particularly coming off the Trudeau years where he was as progressive left as you can get. Trump views this, and I believe it motivates him to continue his push to have it because he views it as doing them a favor while also benefiting the United States. It's just for me, it's too big. If you wanted to say, we'll divide Canada up into 10 states, particularly those provinces that are real close to North America, our northern
Yeah.
border, uh, it would make more sense. I don't see Canada as one state, but plus I mean, I don't know how many millions of people are in Canada, but it's not much bigger than Texas, I don't think, if any bigger than Texas at 29 million. But Trump doesn't
So
see it as being disrespectful.
you talking about one province or
No, I'm talking about the whole country.
the whole country? Texas?
No, the whole country of Canada's population
Oh,
compared to
population.
the population of
Oh, yeah,
Texas.
yeah. I was talking about land
No, no,
mass.
no, no. It's
Yeah.
obviously much bigger. But
Um,
I think we're going to well, I know we're going to continue hear about this Golden Dome. I think Trump wants his legacy to be that he leaves with the greatest of everything. He wants to be, speaking of the goat, he wants to be the goat of all goats. And for him, I believe that's what motivates him. I'm okay with that. But it drives him in such a way that it comes across as uh, not all thought out, comes across as being disrespectful or belittling. It comes across as being the perennial or quintessential bull in the china closet. Uh,
it goes along with his narcissism.
yeah, and it does, and he only has 3.5 years now to do it. So he's not going to stop. We will end up having, I think, some form of a golden dome. At some point, we may see some deal struck between Canada and the United States. I don't know what that will look like, but now with Trudeau out of the picture, although a left-leaning prime minister is in place now up there, I don't know, what kind of resistance that will happen. Uh, I do know that when that Canadian prime minister was here, he
Y-
basically said, "Don't count on it."
Yeah,
You know,
well, I mean that's because when you start out insulting your wife or your mother, okay, I
it's hard
mean,
to hear anything
how
else.
how
Yeah,
can you? And
yeah.
it's just it reeks of the Gulf of Mexico, Gulf of America deal, and now we got some atlases one way and some atlases the next way,
Yeah.
and let's not have to be selfish. We can still be powerful. We can still be great, but let's
I would say, Jeff,
whatever.
to the people like you
I
who
don't like
have
it. I
that
don't like it.
feel about Trump,
And I'd love to have them. I want them.
one of the, I think it's admirable, although can be infuriating, because as we get older in life, and my prayers that Sammy could recognize it now at his age, but uh, we shouldn't care. I mean, certain people we care about how they feel about us, our closest friends, our spouses, uh, our children. But by and large, I don't care what anybody else thinks about me. Otherwise, I wouldn't be doing things I think I need to do, and so I don't really care. Trump is, I mean, I hate to use the word quintessential again, but he's the quintessential. I don't care what you think of what I'm doing or how I do it. I'm doing it this way, and I was elected to do it this way. End of story.
And I got the name that I want.
What's that?
North America.
Yeah, I mean, he would,
That's just simple. North
yeah.
America.
Um, so we'll see what happens. But the Golden Dome, I hope that
Give me a
gives
call.
all of you watching some degree of what we're talking about or what Trump's talking about when he talks about the Golden Dome. Now you have a little bit more information. It would take several years to build, and but I think probably some form of it will be built at some point. All right. Yesterday's Sun included the second in a three-part series of stories about a young lady named Hannah Dillard that we are covering. Hannah is from Tulsa, Oklahoma. Hannah, uh, up until she was about 28 years old, 2017, she was a nurse, Christian missionary, meaning she went all across the world and served the needs of people in countries where there were no nurses to take care of people, no healing processes in terms of medical facilities, that sort of thing. Hannah spent a number of uh, months. I don't know how it could be a year more, could be years, but I know she was on a medic ship where she served as a basically a nurse in a hospital, but on a ship in foreign countries and took care of those who were in trouble. And she specialized in or spent a lot of time in orthopedics. So, you see these young kids on these videos, a lot of
Yeah,
them have
yeah.
orthopedic issues. So Hannah comes from a wonderful spiritual Christian family up in Tulsa. She had been on a long mission trip, got home, flew in. She was living in Dallas at the time, flew into Dallas, tired, was having an issue with her boyfriend who lived in Waxahachie, still does, I think, and decided she would just get off the plane and confront him here. So she drove from Dallas down here. She had never had a drink before, certainly never been drunk. She had never had any traffic ticket, spotless record on anything and everything. But that night, she made a tragic decision to drink, and she got significantly inebriated and ended up stopping at Quick Trip on Butcher Road. Upon leaving Butcher Road in that state of mind, she uh, turned on what she thought was the southbound lanes of 35 to come further into Waxahachie, but she was on the northbound side and ended up hitting a car head on. The car had 5 SMU students in it. No one died, thankfully. Both Hannah and those 5 students were injured. They've all been able to carry on. One lives in Abu Dhabi now. Not, is it Abu Dhabi? Is that no?
Abu Dhabi.
Yeah. Over there, and then there others have done some things. The most seriously injured was a young lady who lives up in Chicago, and so anyway, fast forward 4 years because from 2017 when this happened, uh, she made bail. Uh, Courts were operating as usual then, but then you hit COVID in early 2020, and the court system basically shut down. So you had people left longer in jail, people who were had pending hearings coming were more pending. And so she was out of prison. Well, I'm not sorry. She was on bail out of jail prior to court, her trial for 4 years. During that period of time, she sold her car, her house, all of her belongings so as to make restitution to those people. She then had a trial, or the
Half $1 million.
more than that. Yep. So we don't know the exact number, but we know that it was more than $500,000. We also we know a lot, so that's what these stories are about. And I'm trying to just bring you up to speed. Hannah then had a 3-day trial here in the city of Waxahachie. The judge at the time was Cindy Ermatinger. Many of you may know Cindy. The prosecutor was Grace Panda Thurai, and the attorney general, I'm sorry, the district attorney at the time was Ann Montgomery. Of those three, I think highly of Cindy and of Grace. I'm not a big fan at all of Ann Montgomery. Matter of fact, I endorsed her competitor or her opponent last November, Linda Beatty, who's now our district attorney. Uh, Interestingly enough, Grace is now the judge. So Cindy retired. Grace won that race last November.
Got my
I
vote.
endorsed her as well. Yeah, your vote for her. And so now she's the judge of the court in which she tried Hannah and where Hannah was prosecuted. After a 3-day trial, the jury got the case on a Friday evening. The jury was out for less than half an hour, came back with a 12-year sentence. In our story today, or yesterday, we give information about the comparables, if you will, much like in a home where you're going to sell your home, you look at the comps around you. In this case, we looked across the country and said, for a DUI, first time offender, DUI offense, where no fatalities, where there was a crash, an accident, and no fatalities, what is the normal sentencing? What is the normal outcome? Uh, Many of them get probation. Those that don't get probation can range anywhere from 2 to 6 years, 2 to 10 years, something like that. And it's about a $10,000 restitution. The Hannah got again 12 years and has paid over $500,000 in restitution. Hannah went to a maximum. She was sent to a maximum security prison. This is a young lady who at the time would have been about 30, 31, sent to a maximum prison down near Austin. Um, because she's from Oklahoma and her family lives in Tulsa and she's got aging parents, the case was not transferred to Oklahoma, but she was transferred to a prison, the Eddie Warrior Correctional Facility outside of Tulsa, so that she could be close to her family and her aging parents. which is where she sits today. And she's been in jail, in prison for 3.5 years. She doesn't even have an opportunity for parole until I think 6 years or 8 years. So she's got many more years before that even comes up. All said, today's story basically says here is why. I mean, it was a story, so it's just fact based. I'm giving my opinion based on the story. Is it's an outrageous sentence, and there are questions I have about it, and we're going to be hopefully talking with both Grace, the prosecutor at the time, and the new attorney general. Well, I keep calling it attorney, new district attorney Linda Beatty, because there is a way to correct what is an obvious wrong. If those of you watching remember, I just forgot his name, the affluenza kid, Ethan Couch, from 10 years ago. And that's a quick 10 years because it seems like I remember that just like it was yesterday. But Ethan Couch up in Dallas, I believe it was, certainly in the Metroplex, was stone cold drunk, uh, hit four people, killed all four of them, and injured a whole bunch more. You know what he was given?
No.
10 years probation. That 10 years ended, is over. He was a thug before then. He's a thug after. Been in
That was
trouble.
over in Fort Worth, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was in trouble often. And so, and then the other case that we included in our story was a young, I don't know if she was young, but it was a drunk lady driving a car, hit a bicyclist. Bicyclist was killed. The person driving the car had a child, a baby in the car, and her sentence was the same as Hannah's. So Hannah's again injured five people, six people if you include her. No fatalities. She has made restitution. She lived uh, when it comes to crime and issues with the law, a perfect life before then. Has lived one since then. The 4 years that she was out, she was did everything she could. No mistakes. Um, but she got 12 years, and it's wrong. And so we've been approached by uh, some folks to look into this. We've dug in so far into this, it's not even funny. We know that the governor of Oklahoma and state senators in Oklahoma and others in Oklahoma want the case transferred there so that they can just commute this sentence. In the story yesterday, or response to the story yesterday, a number of people were like, "That she should get more than that. She killed somebody, and she shouldn't have done this." And we, first of all, people didn't read the full story because she didn't kill anybody. Secondly, my question is, first time offenders means something. And if we don't have a society in which people are allowed to make a mistake and be given a chance for redemption, we're in trouble because we all make mistakes. Some of them small, some of them big. It's those who make continuous mistakes, particularly the same thing. So we have perpetual repeat offenders of drunk driving who should be thrown under the jail, as far as I'm concerned. But when we
Right.
have a one a what did I call it? First time offender. Uh, we don't sentence them to 12 years in
Right.
prison. We just don't.
Well, but we've had this discussion about similar things. The the sentencing, they did not violate sentencing
No.
guidelines. Okay,
Mm-mm.
so you have a guideline that does say that, and so they didn't do anything illegal by that sentence. They just were very harsh.
Right.
That's
That's what it comes down to. And they, it's what's one of the interesting things that I'm interested in, that we're interested in, is where did that sentence come from? Now, juries, as I know, jury
where did
trials.
the guideline come from?
No, where did the guideline may have said probation to 20 years or
Right.
15 years. I don't know where 12 came from. So did the jury just didn't come up with that on their own. The jury wouldn't know that. The jury would be told by a prosecutor, correct me if you think I'm wrong, but a prosecutor would say to the judge who asked, well, what, she pled guilty.
Right.
There was none of that. The trial wasn't about whether she was guilty or not
Right.
guilty. The trial was about what she should pay, the sentencing. So who came up with the 12 years? So my belief is that the prosecutor in this case, Grace, would have said to the jury or to the judge, we believe 12 years is appropriate, and said to the jury, we ask you to find her uh, guilty, that's obvious, and that you send her to 12 years. And the jury in less than 30 minutes after a 3-day trial said, That's what we want here.
I'll tell you one thing it tells a lot about is the importance of picking the right jurors.
Yeah, and the right attorney,
I mean,
because
that's huge.
so that's part of the story that we're at now.
You
The
mean
next,
the right defense attorney?
yeah. So
And it
she
wasn't a
went.
public defender.
No, 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 no. It's not a public. It wasn't a public defender.
parents
It
had a
was
lot of money. They could have picked a good
the
attorney.
the yeah. The issue, there is an issue with the attorney who believed strongly that she was going to get probation. Convinced her of that. She was offered a plea deal of 8 years, and her attorney was and given a short window of time to be able to make that decision. She thought that was too short of a time. Her attorney said, "You this is the perfect, not perfect, but the ideal situation for probation, first time offender, your spotless record, all that stuff. Uh, Probation makes a lot of sense." And so she went with that. And then the jury came with 12 years. So she's now 34,
Yeah.
35. Her parents are, I know her dad's 79, close to 80, wonderful human being. So was her mother and her brother and her sister. Just a wonderful family with aging parents. They're saying to themselves, I'm sure, wait a minute, the time I've got left on this earth is limited probably.
Right.
If at 80, I'm already 4 years beyond the average lifespan for a man. So I want to spend some time with my daughter. And right now she's in a prison. They can see her on Saturday. Uh, and I'm sure they can give her a hug. But you know what? I mean, it's a sad, tragic case, and so I believe she's been what the state senator in Oklahoma uses miscarriage of justice. I'm a little bit more crude because I think it's a railroading situation here of this treatment, and we think she should be
Yeah.
uh, paroled now. And so, anyway, we got one more story in the
Yeah.
part three series, and then following that will be two columns that I'll be writing about this whole thing.
And go pick up a paper. Come by here and pick up a paper. Go online, which is the biggest way that people have always read this paper, and read more about it.
Well, and then our plug for Grit and Good News on Substack.com, where you can get all of our content, including these shows, but far more content that you don't see unless you have a subscription. You go there, Substack.com, search Grit and Good News. You'll find us for $5 a month, less than a burger. You'll get all of what we provide, and then all these stories about Hannah are being included in Grit and Good News newsletter on Substack, and then certainly my columns will be there as well because I'm not going to hold back on these columns.
And it
It's
comes out twice a week,
Monday and
Mondays and
Friday.
Fridays.
Yeah, so there is no holding back on this.
So,
And what's interesting, the last thing I'll say about this is that I care deeply about both Grace and Lindy. I think they're wonderful human beings. I think this is a travesty. Lindy didn't have anything to do with it, but she now can do something about it. So I want to talk with her. Grace was right there in the belly of that beast, and I believe, if I know the Grace Panditheri, and I'm sure I do, she believes in grace, pardon that pun, and mercy, and we need to right this wrong. So
amen.
that's what we're going to be pursuing. All right, there you go. All right, he said, "Oh, I got my well, we don't may not have time for it today. So if we do, I'll
Yeah,
read
yeah. We
my
we
my
we skipped it once, and we'll skip it
well,
again.
my random thoughts, which are always as random as crazy, like yours and Sammy's. But anyway, I'll read that later if we have time. So he said. He said, let me ask you this: do you think, and Sammy, you can weigh in too if you want to, bud, and certainly those of you watching, I believe there is a shadow government being created. It's probably already created in this government or in this country. Shadow government on the left that says, much like you would have a football team, two football teams, you got a cornerback that covers the wide end, right, or a wide receiver. You've got a nose tackle that goes up against the center, right? You got linebackers that spot on, the running backs. I think there's a shadow government created in this country that says, okay, and I'm talking about on the left, that your job is to focus your energies and your work on opposing Pam Bondi, the Attorney General of the United States, and all these other cabinet positions. Do you think there is one as well?
Well, I can certainly conceive of it. I don't like the name shadow government. How about subversive organization uh, whose intent is to uh, undermine the current government?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's fair. I think the
Well,
shadow government comes from,
because it just sounds
well, the
it sounds
shadow,
even
yeah.
spookier.
Well, the shadow is, you know how you bring a kid to work day and they
Yeah.
shadow you.
Yeah.
That's one element of this, the phrase or the word, and then the other is that it's in the dark. That the shadow government is one in which they don't want anybody to know there is such a thing. Yours is more for saying, okay, yeah, we have this going on, and this is what we call it.
Yeah.
In this case, the left, the way I know the left is that it's a shadow government. They don't want anybody to know that this is going on. It is going on, and I just want to share with you. I think you'll find this interesting out there. There are 21, according to Bill Scher, who's a Politico writer. Politico is a left-leaning company. They've covered us when we were at the Daily Light because of our support for Trump. So I'm familiar with how their content and where they lean. This reporter believes or writer believes there are 21 members of this shadow government, and I just want to give you some sense of who they are. Now, as I told Jeff when we were prepping for the show, that this is not parody. I'm not being satirical, nor am I just making this stuff up, nor am I trying to be funny. If I'm trying to be funny, you'll know it because you'll probably say that wasn't very funny, or a dad joke. Uh, but in this case, this is not parody. It's not satire. It's straight up. This is what this guy in his investigations and research believes is in place right now in opposition to Trump's administration. So, New York Attorney General Letitia James is, as a part of this shadow government, the U.S. Attorney General. So her job is to shadow everything Pam Bondi does as the real Attorney General, and then to oppose her, fight her, uh, throw up obstacles, get in the way, whatever. That's what Letitia James, as part of the shadow government, is to do. All right. So then you have, let's see, let me tell you another one. Jon Stewart. Sammy, do you know who Jon Stewart is? That comedian? Most of you, or many of you who will know Jon Stewart, he's a liberal comedian on the Comedy Channel. He, uh, I don't care for him, but you know that shouldn't be any surprise to anybody. But comedian Jon Stewart is the Secretary of Veterans Affairs, and Nikki Glazer, who is she just hosted the Golden Globes the other night, but she's funny if you like vulgarity and you like crude jokes, but she presents herself as a true comedian in the sense that it's a natural. She's just good at what she does. What she does is not very good, if you ask me, for the country, for people. She would be, or she is the leader of the Small Business Administration, shadow government. There is, let me give another person here would be Mark Cuban, Secretary of Commerce. So Mark Cuban, as
They'll
part of
never
this,
do that.
what Mark Cuban as part of this would be watching Howard Lutnick, who's Secretary of Commerce right now, and trying
I
to.
hate them throwing out names of people that they haven't confirmed for this.
Well, that's what a shadow government is. It's like who was calling the shots. We're gonna have a segment next week sometime. Who literally
Right.
who managed the auto pen for Biden, because that's coming out now, uh, because we don't know. So the shadow government is not necessarily to be known, but this guy's work, I commend him for doing it, has revealed that this is who he thinks is the shadow government. Bill Nye,
The science guy.
the science guy, to lead the Environmental Protection Agency. I'm not giving all 21 of them, but I'm giving you the ones that I just thought you might find interesting. Arizona Governor Katie Hobbs, who I think is another Kamala Harris and that kind of ilk, for Secretary of Education. Uh, Virginia gubernatorial candidate, current candidate Abigail Spanberger, a CIA director. And then the last one I want to share with you, and get a load of this. Uh, if the name Giselle Fetterman doesn't ring a bell, she is the wife of, is his name John Fetterman, the senator from Pennsylvania, who always wears hoodies, and is not altogether there. In some ways, not his own fault because he had a serious stroke years ago. But it would be his wife, who is the Secretary of Homeland Security. So the idea that Trump's administration has a team, opposition team, that lurks in the shadows, but that is focused on stopping him at every place and every point, I believe is in action as we speak. Now, you could also say the judiciary. We talk about these road judges. So who's to know?
Mr. Brooks, it's time that we just take pity on the left and on the Democrats. And here's what put yourself in this position. You have Kamala lose. You have everything coming out bad about Biden. Uh, because you are a minority in both parties, you can't really even propose any legislation because you know it won't
Yeah,
get through.
yeah,
You can't you can't oppose the current legislation because you don't have the numbers,
right.
and you're hurt. And instead of taking this approach, how about saying we're going to be the first minority party ever to really work in a bipartisan effort with both sides of the aisle because we've had a lot of bipartisan things happen over the years, and we're going to try to win back some favor by saying, you know what, the people spoke, we're out, we want to cooperate.
Yeah, I
But
don't.
they don't have
Will
a
we
lick
ever
of that
get
in their
there
blood.
again?
They don't have a lick of that in
Well,
their
yeah.
blood.
Well,
So,
if you really think if you did name association, you said when was the last time the country had bipartisanship
yeah.
in play? To me, it goes back to the Newt Gingrich years when he and Bill Clinton worked out a deal and contract for America and balanced budget and things were good for the country back then. I'm not a Clinton fan, but that was really the last time when we saw any of that.
So enough of
So
my kumbaya.
there you have it. All right, rhyme time. You got a
Prime
you
time.
got a
You,
poem for us
you
today?
got it up there, Mr. Samwell. This is called perspective, and I was thinking about it just like the day that I wrote it when I was out digging weeds. I've got some pretty nice landscaping. Got a nice cement border,
Yeah,
but they still find their way in
yeah,
there. And boy, I hate weeding. I
yeah.
really do.
Me
And it's
too.
called perspective. The difference between a weed and a flower is really quite scant. It's a flower if you want it, otherwise, it's just a plant. In either meadow or garden, this rule does pertain. If you like it, you'll maintain, otherwise, it's just a pain. Grass follows this rule. The lawn gets a manicure, but with the grass in your garden, there's no lasting cure. See, the grass is now a weed because it has no need. In the lawn, it was your prize, but in the garden, you despise. So be mindful of your outlook. You may see a flower, others see a weed.
Yeah,
Choose one or the other. You're both right, indeed.
yeah. Good. That's good.
Yeah.
A weed in your what you're writing there is about a garden or landscaping. That also is metaphorical for walks of life. If the Dallas Stars have a weed on their team, it's gonna hurt the team. If you got a weed in your organization, it's gonna hurt your organization. And if you got a weed in your family or your church or your whatever, weeds are everywhere.
The great Texas bluebonnet is essentially a weed
Yeah,
with gorgeous flowers and
yeah,
the
we love
Indian
our blue
paintbrush.
bonnets.
And
Yeah.
thank God for Lady Bird Johnson and all she did.
All right, it's time to redeem
Okay,
ourselves from last Tuesday.
and I'll tell
That
you
was
what,
brutal.
I came out the gates 0-3.
For those of you watching every day, we end our show last segment. Well, segment before the last part is to do a day in history. The idea is to help everybody that's watching learn things, and we've watched Sammy learn a lot over these years, and that we're learning a lot too because I don't know most of this stuff, but that's what we're doing. So
Here we go.
go for it.
You get one if you get it right. You one against if you lose it. You get a 7 year on
Span.
each span, 14 years, seven on each side,
Yep,
and you get a bonus for hitting it on the head. And thank God I had two of them on the head. I want you to get them both.
that's some
Here we
pressure.
go.
All right.
Rhode Island became the 13th and final colony to ratify the United States Constitution.
Oh, 1784.
1791.
Very nice. 1790.
Oh, we both
Oh,
got it.
yeah.
Sammy got
I
close.
had trouble with that because Washington was elected in 88,
Yeah.
but I guess we didn't really. have the Constitution until we had the government. I didn't think it
Right.
through. Here we
Right.
go. 0-1 for the big hit man. Edmund Hillary of New Zealand and Tenzing Norgay of Nepal became the first climbers to reach the summit of Mount Everest.
Yeah. Oh man.
I was so far on this,
I'm
so far
gonna
off.
I'm gonna I'm gonna fast forward to 1941.
I was gonna say 1922.
I had 05. It was 1953.
Wow, that's a jump.
Yeah.
All right.
That is a big jump. All right.
Janet Guthrie became the first woman to race in the Indy
Yeah.
500, finishing in 29th place. I think they run 33
Something like
cars.
that. Yeah.
AJ Foyt won the race for his record fourth Indy victory. Janet Guthrie.
I would
Sounds like
say,
Nico.
This is before the days of Danica Patrick.
yeah, long before.
Uh,
1984.
1991.
77.
Oh
Ooh, I
my
barely
God.
He
got it.
snuck in
Nice.
there.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was gonna stay in the 70s.
39 people were killed at the European Cup final in Brussels, Belgium, when rioting broke out and a wall separating British and Italian soccer fans collapsed. What kind of wall was
Yeah.
that?
One I would build.
Well, not a
97.
98.
85.
Ooh,
Dang
missed
it.
it by that much.
How about a little bonus here? I'm throwing you a bone with the president.
Okay.
The World War II memorial on the National Mall in Washington, D.C. was dedicated by President George W. Bush.
Okay. So that would be
2009.
that's Obama years. 2004.
2004 is
Oh
correct. You
yeah.
got the bonus. Thank you. You tied me very good. A judge in Los Angeles sentenced music producer Phil Spector to
Okay.
19 years to life in prison for the murder of actress Lena Clarkson.
I remember that.
Spector remained in prison until his
Yeah.
death.
Yeah.
2013.
That was an interesting trial. He was a bad dude. Frizzy hair. I would say 2011.
2009, 213 was my guess.
Dang it.
Fired Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin was arrested and charged with third-degree murder and second-degree manslaughter in the death of George Floyd. Chauvin was convicted on those charges as well as an unintentional second-degree murder.
It's 2021.
2023.
2020.
Oh wow.
Dang.
Is that it?
That's it.
What were you, Sam?
I got 3 right, no bonuses.
6 and 2 from me today.
6 and 3. The
Uh,
second bonus helped.
all right. So we have a video, but I don't think we have enough time to play it here. So we're going to just wrap it up. But so it's Thursday. We got hopefully a better weather weekend coming. It's getting warmer out there. We're grateful that you were here today. Again, want to invite you to subscribe to Grit and Good News, which is on Substack, substack.com, substack.com.
But
Go
this is
there.
forever free
Yeah, go
right here.
go there. Search Grit and Good News with the ampersand, and you will find us. There you will get a newsletter every Monday and Friday that will consist of a column on each of those days. Jeff writes an opinion poem, which is an interesting concept. I really like it. Does a great job.
About the same topic as
About
the
the same
column.
talk as the column I'm writing. Next week we've got some really well. We think columns and poems are always interesting, but we're really getting into some topics that are we need to get into and we need to be addressed. Race baiting. We have are there termites in the government? And I'm talking about the literal little mini tiny little things, but I'm talking about
There's
the
no fluff to any of these
yeah,
columns.
straight
Although
at you.
you know, I might put a little levity into my poem
Yeah, well, a
about
poem
a
needs
controversy.
levity. It's but
Well, I like it that way. I
yeah,
mean, you know,
when you're
make
good
them
at it.
laugh or cry.
Well, in the poem, I mean, the columns are just straight at you, and I frankly, there's no holding back anymore. Not that there ever was, but there certainly isn't now. And so those columns are, at least from the people that read them, they enjoy them. So, uh, but for $5 a month, you get all of that. It helps us grow and have a voice from the state of Texas and to become more influential on a national basis, hopefully. And we know that millions of people on Facebook alone have have responded to us. So we're just trying to reach as many people as we can, and your subscription would make a difference. So there you have it. With that, I say thank you for being here, and we'll see you on Tuesday.
And make it a great day and put a smile on somebody's face.